Welcome to Beer Ain't Easy with Adam and Drew, episode number 26.
This is the episode to trump all episodes.
We have officially legitimized ourselves as a podcast.
And the reason we're saying that is that we started home brewing for the first time about a month ago.
I don't even know you need to throw in that home brewer. We started brewing.
Yeah, we started brewing legitimately or illegitimately. I can't decide which one.
After we taste this beer, we're going to find out.
So we took 2 home brew kits and we put them head to head. And we're going to tell you at the end of this episode, if you're going to get into this brewing game, which one of these 1 gallon kits is the one to get.
So today we are going to talk about our brewing experiences, as well as for the very first time in front of a live audience on YouTube.
Live, baby, going live.
We are gonna taste and rate Beer and Ain't Easy Ale batch number 1 and Beer and Ain't Easy Ale batch number 2.
But if that's too confusing for you, we'll tell you the actual kits that we got.
I will refer to them as Beer and Ain't Easy Ale batch number 1 and batch number 2, and only that.
As long as you're keeping track of which one's which.
I am not. That falls within your span of responsibility.
So let's introduce the 2 kits. So do you want to take the first one?
Okay, so the first kit is a craft beer making kit. It's called a Frosty Footprint Pale Ale, and it's manufactured by Northern Brewer.
All right. And the second one we have, I don't have a good prop to show on this one, but it is the Brew Shop, and it is the American Pale Ale. So we tried to do a pale ale versus pale ale challenge here, but when we brewed them, as you'll find out, the 2 colors could not be different between the 2 beers. So one's a little paler than the others. That's just a little preview of what's to come.
Yeah, and so just super high level, the first one was kind of brewing for dummies, and the second one was a little more complex.
Brewing for novices, maybe.
Novices, yes.
Which, let's be honest, we needed that level for us to get into the beer game. We needed to break it down. Lots of instructions.
Lots.
But as we've said in previous episodes, we're engineers, and so this appealed to our scientific side. So it's a very good chance that we overcomplicated the shit out of this, and we'll see at the end result what we got.
I think we will. It will be interesting.
So I think what we should do, I think we need to give the audience a little bit of a feel for how to brew with the Northern Brewer kit, the 1 gallon kit, versus the Brooklyn Brew Shop. So you want to run us through your high level summary on that Northern Brewer?
I am gonna take Northern Brewer because it's much simpler to explain.
And Adam's a simple man.
I'm a simple yet sophisticated man, as many people would say.
That got on YouTube.
Okay, so I guess I don't know even where to start. So I guess the first thing that I need to say is there is an intense level of sanitation involved in home brewing. Did you have any idea that was a thing?
No, I thought there was a lot of sanitation involved with trying to not get COVID-19, but then I started home brewing and then I realized that I was doing it all wrong.
It was like they give you a little sanitation packet and you put it with clean water, and you have to sanitize everything you're going to use, as well as any other auxiliary thing that will touch something that potentially will touch the beer.
Yeah. So
we had to sanitize the scissors that we cut open different packages with.
And we had to sanitize the packet of yeast, which I was like, you're just tearing it open and dumping it in there. You have to sanitize the outside of like a papery feeling package. I'm like, this is weird.
Weird. I felt dirty doing it.
I was looking at it and I was like, we're sanitizing all this equipment. I was like, how clean are my hands? I mean, like what's the end product going to be if I didn't clean my hands well enough?
Okay, so let me take you through the process. So the first thing we did is we put some water, well, of course, the first thing we did is sanitize the shit out of everything. The second thing we did is put water in a pot and start to bring it to like a very small boil. A very slow rolling boil.
So let me just butt in here and say that the instructions told you not to have it foaming over the top, but they said to have a steady boil. So, I mean, I had a steady boil, so it, what we'll find out in the second kit was that they had a lot stricter instructions on that boil, and the first one may have been boiling a little harder than we thought it was going to boil.
Okay, so we got that little steady boil. Drew was a little heavy-handed on the gas knob on his stove. I told him time and time again to cut back, but he refused. So then we had this little like mesh bag to hold the grains. So we pour the grains in there.
Yeah, I know what you want to say. Like what, there was something, okay, so let me break this down. We tried to record ourselves while we were brewing, and I went back and I listened to that like hours of footage, and it just sounded like we were banging pots together, and then there was one word that just kept popping up, and I think that's what Adam's going to bring up is what he thought that bag of grains looked like.
The bag of grains looked like a ball sack. and so like you put the grains in this little bag, then you tied a knot and you steeped it in the boiling water for like 20 minutes, and it just looked like a little ball sack dipping in and out of the boiling water.
So what sort of experience do you have dipping ball sacks into water? I mean, you seem experienced in this department.
What happens
in Vegas?
What happens in Vegas? Only a Jody knows stays in Vegas. Okay, so we did that for 20 minutes. We made a grainy, watery solution. Then came the malt.
Malt syrup.
Malt syrup.
Malt
So
extract.
there was like this jar of malt, looked like molasses. You poured it in to the grain water solution, and you boiled that for 20 minutes. Then at I guess it was 45 minutes in total. At various times, you added different hops. And so there was Centennial hops, Cascade hops, and German Pearl hops that were added at various stages of the boiling process.
I think what was awesome about those hops, and that's been my new pastime since we started brewing, is like tearing open each one of those packages and smelling how each one of them was a little bit different and what flavors they brought. Like I'm obsessed with it now. Every time I'm drinking an IPA, I'm like, oh, this one's got Cascade hops. I can almost pretend like I can taste it, but it may be in my head.
So what it made me want to do is like keep some hops, like buy some hops and have them so that we could have different samples of hops and smell them as we're drinking different beers so that we could identify.
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So after we did that, then we filled up the sink with ice, and we put the pot in ice and we let it cool for about 30 minutes. So once it cools, that mixture I learned is called wort.
Yeah, like on your skin.
It pretty much looked like the same thing. So then, at that point, there was hold on, let me gather myself. YouTube, you'll understand someday. So, after the wort was cooled, it was time to transfer it into the fermenter.
Nice.
And so that is exactly what we did. So we took the water, or the wort, not the water, and we put it in the fermenter. So we had like a little funnel, a little filter to filter out the nasty shit. I think that's the official
The shrub.
the nasty shit. So we put that in there, and so it was supposed to make a gallon, and so we actually had to add some extra water because Drew was way too heavy-handed on the gas stop and boiled off way too much.
Yeah, I was a little concerned when we had to make up a decent amount of water, especially, you know, once we did the second batch and did not have to fill it with as much water. So how, like, all in all, like brewing time, like how long did it take us to do that one?
I think it took about like 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So it's a good afternoon. I felt like this kit, like, you know, we were working together on this one, but there weren't a lot of steps on this kit that you couldn't do with one person.
Yeah, it'd be fairly doable with one person. It's probably more fun with 2 people.
And beers.
So this one we did not drink beer, because we did it in the middle of the holidays and we were drinking beer all the fucking time.
And like honestly, like I wanted to be at the top of my game when I was boiling all that water out of our beer.
I just figured we'd drink the beer as we were making it.
So that.
Hold on, we're not done.
Okay.
Then the most important part is you pitched the yeast.
Okay.
And so this one was much different because we just sprinkled the yeast on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Drew will talk about, there was a big shaking process in the other brewing kit. So we're wondering what that's all about and what the impact of that was.
Yeah, it's literally just floated on the top and then, you
like
know.
a bunch of turds.
So,
like a bunch of turds in a porta potty.
That's quite an analogy you had there. Oh man. So I'm not going to go through every step of the Brooklyn Brew Shop because Adam was like way too long in his descriptors there.
I am an educator. I'm an educator of the people of this great world we live in.
I appreciate that. I'm going to focus on the differences. So like the first difference is that we talked about malt extract, and you know, I think the malt extract is what makes it easy, right? They're doing the hard work for you. They're giving you this malt extract that you go ahead and put in your brewing kit. Brooklyn Brew Shop, there's no malt extract. It's actually an all-grain brewing kit. So whereas we had the ball sack sized amount of grain with the Northern Brewer, the Brooklyn Brew Shop, it was like a freaking brick. It was like a pound of grains, man.
Yeah, like, there was a lot.
Yeah, and so it's malted barley, and so this is like making oatmeal, which was different. So you do water and you do your barley, and you just kind of keep stirring it, and then you bring things up to a boil. But they're very specific. They had like I feel like the Brooklyn Brew Shop was super detailed on those descriptors.
Yeah, there was like a 10-degree temperature range. So like you heat it up to a certain temperature and then you let it drop 10 degrees and then you turn the heat back on to heat it back up.
Yeah, they said they said don't let this boil hard. It should just be like a glob, glob, glob. And so immediately when that came up and we were thinking about the boil we had on the Northern Brewer, we're like, oh shit.
It brought a lot of questions to mind.
So I knew that, you know, the Brooklyn Brew Shop, when you ordered their kit, they give you a thermometer. They were a little more analytical on what you're supposed to do in these steps, like a little more detailed. So I think that right off the bat, it was like, oh, this is serious business. We got to really pay attention here.
Yeah, it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
We did need a couple of beers during.
Yeah, we did crack beers on this one, and I think we were drinking French Press from what I remember from St. Arm.
Yep. Good beer.
So you do have hops on this one, but what was weird about the hops that we added for Brooklyn Brew Shop is they didn't tell us what kind of hops they were. They just said nugget hops, and it was just a tiny little bag of hops that you threw in there at the end of the boiling process, and then you had this mixture. All it was the grain, the hops, and then we had to filter it out, and we caught the wort into a pot, and then we had to keep sparging water over those grains. And we mentioned the pound size grains. We quickly found that, you know, they said you needed a strainer filter, and I was like, oh, I got that covered, because we saw the grains we had in the first kit. But this one, we overloaded the shit out of our strainer.
Yes, we had so many pots and pans and strainers, and then like we overloaded the first strainer, and so like we had to get like a second strainer, so we had like a finer strainer, and then like we're like, oh yeah, that'll be fine. And then like we're a third of the way through and it's like overflowing, so then we get a second strainer, and then that damn near is overflowing. And then we had to strain it through the grains, get all the water into the pot, and then repeat that process.
Yeah, it was definitely a two-person exercise. For
I don't
sure.
know how you would have done that
Yeah.
with one person. Like it,
No, it was.
you need equipment.
You did, yeah. We needed a bigger filter, but I mean even the pouring back and forth, like having that set up to where you have your hands to pour, like it really needed two people to do it, and especially once you started getting it into containers. But Adam kind of mentioned it. So what's funny though is that when it came to the line, when we looked at do we need to add water or not, we were right on the 1 gallon mark, so we didn't lose anything in the boiling process. So I was pretty proud of that.
It was pretty exceptional, I have to say.
And the other thing we bought on this kit that was a little more scientific is we bought a hydrometer so that we could measure the density before we start fermenting. I could start measuring because it was a cool idea, and it was cool except for the fact that we kind of didn't really measure it when we were supposed to when we were bottling. And so tonight I may pull that hydrometer out and see if I can get a final ABV rating to find out how much alcohol content it was in there.
We're gonna have to do a prediction
On ABV?
ABV and which one has higher ABV.
I like it.
And I'm gonna win.
And you're gonna win, okay. You've won so many things on this podcast.
I always win.
You've got a great streak going, especially on blind tastings.
Damn it, Drew. Not in public. Not in front of the audience.
Not in front of the audience. So the last thing that was you mentioned a little bit was was actually the yeast. So when we put the yeast packet, so you transferred everything into the fermenter, which is just a jug. And on this one, you pour the yeast packet in, you close it in, and then you just shake the shit out of it, and then put it in a dark closet.
It just brought so many questions about why the sprinkles versus the shake.
Yeah, like why does one need the shake activation? And what's interesting too is like when it was I put it in our closet, and when I looked at it when it was fermenting, the one from Northern Brewer where we sprinkled, it was not a violent reaction at all. Like you saw maybe a couple bubbles, but the one from Brooklyn Brew Shop, you actually put a piece of tubing out the top and then into a little bowl, and it for that first like day and a half, it like I went into that closet and it had foamed over my bowl and it was all on the floor. It was like violently bubbling and reacting. And
did you drink it off the floor?
There was like roaches down there. That was gross.
Because of the fermenting, or before you put it in there?
I will plead the fifth. We keep a clean house.
Bless your soul, Mary.
Oh man. So that was the overview of the brewing process. Do you want to talk about the bottling at all?
Oh, we have to. So the audience is probably as naive as you were before this process.
Maybe. Okay. Touche.
So when you do it, you ferment it for, how long was the fermenting again?
The fermenting process was about 2 weeks.
It was about 2 weeks. And so you do that, then you bottle it. And so then after you bottle it, I never realized that the beer had to sit in the bottle to carbonate before it was ready to drink.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that?
I didn't. I think you and I both came in like super rookies on this thing, so we were right at the same level.
And so it had to sit in there for 2 weeks too, right?
Yeah. And what was interesting, when we bottled the Northern Brewer, they had these pre-made sugar pellets that you just dropped into each bottle, and that was the sugar. It reacts and it lets out CO2 and carbonates inside there. So the difference with the Brooklyn Brew Shop is that you actually dissolved honey in a water solution, and then you siphoned the beer in with the honey water, and then you siphoned that into all the bottles. And so the siphoning part was kind of interesting and was also another two-person job in my opinion.
It was. It definitely was. It was not as easy and straightforward as you would have expected.
Yeah, Northern Brewer had like a little spout, like a little spigot that you just had to open, and it was a little easier to do. But the one, again, Brooklyn Brew Shop, you had to like pump this siphon, and then you had to have the other person had the end of it pouring into the bottles, and then you had a little clamp that when you were about to overflow, you had to push the clamp down so that you didn't overflow. So it was a little
I thought
intense.
they intentionally made it a little more complicated. Like, why not just put like a little valve on the end that you can like twist open and close? But it's like, no, you need this clamp that has like a bunch of room for air just to make you look like a dumbass.
Yeah, which we did.
Which we did.
So that was like the overall process. If you want like the 10-second version of that, Adam made a pretty good reel on our Instagram page that you can find, at least of the Northern Brewing Kit, that showed the brewing process, so you should check it out.
It went viral.
Yeah, just like all our other posts. So let's...
Okay, so let's crack the beers.
Yeah, because my pregame beer, as you can see on the video, is gone. And so while we're cracking the beers, since we already know what each one is, let's talk about what we're gonna rate today. So you can start cracking
Okay,
yours.
I am gonna crack the Northern Brewer. And the official name of this beer is Beerin' Ain't Easy Ale, batch number 1.
And the kit that we got was actually the Frosty Footprints Pale Ale. And you know, Adam was really big on us making our own labels. But what was nice about this Northern Brewing Kit was actually like a gift kit, and so it came with a whole lot of shit. It came with the cappers for capping. You know, it had a lot of stuff in it, including labels for the beer. So I had to put the Frosty Footprint label on the beer because they're pretty cool. But the other beer did not come with labels, and so the Brooklyn Brew Shop got the official, the official Beering Ain't Easy logo.
That is batch 2.
Okay, for those that are keeping track of your twisted scale.
Okay, so one thing I'm curious to see is when we crack them, so I'm going to crack batch number 1.
Okay.
You crack batch number 2. And so the audience can hear the
Okay.
intensity of the...
Yeah, you go first.
Ooh.
Oh. Oh, shit.
Oh my god!
I'm so glad this is on YouTube.
Here. Oh my god.
This is ridiculous. Oh my god. That was terrible. I think this just went viral right here.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh my god. So we got so the Brooklyn Brew Shop is a bottle rocket. Holy freaking Oh, I can't wait to check the tapes on that. I think we're gonna pause the video for just a minute so we can get some paper towels.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. That was intense.
So I just had to make it, and so for those of you who have not watched the video, which you should go and watch our video because it's pretty ridiculous, I just had to make a complete wardrobe change because my Brooklyn Brew Shop American Pale Ale became a rocket when I opened it.
I feel like I just watched you win the Super Bowl.
I've never had a beer experience where beer went, like it hit this back wall all over my artwork, it hit the side wall over here, all over my clothes. This room just reeks like a bar right now.
Well, it's nice because it's been a while since I've been to a bar, and I feel like I'm at a bar now.
Yeah,
It's nice for those of us that don't live here, because we get to smell that beer bar musk.
Yeah, that stale flavor. So that was ridiculous. So we kind of shook that off, and we're back. We back.
We back. and we better than ever.
So let's get back to the beer. So Adam's beer did
Hold on,
not.
before we go on to the details of the beer, I went over to the sink. I had my beer angled down, ready for it to spray, and I just popped it open, and nothing happened. It was a lot foamy. Like when I poured it, I had to pour it into 2 pint glasses because it was so foamy. But that spray action, I think Drew was running around the house shaking his beer.
I think this was sabotage. I think when I wasn't looking, you shook up my beer, and then you were like, Drew's gonna be on YouTube for the first time, becoming a fucking internet sensation because beer just like hits him like a champagne
The
shot.
eye in the sky doesn't lie.
So let's talk about these beers since we now have 2 beers.
We now have 2 beers, and wow, my initial reaction is neither of them look like a fucking pale ale. Like, that's just my initial reaction. So, Beer and Easy Ale, batch number 1, looks like a brown ale.
And that's the Northern Brewer.
Beer and Easy, batch number 2, looks like a hazy IPA.
Yeah, it's almost like a hazy pilsner. I mean, it's like a light color, but it's got some haze to it. So this is interesting. So
did you just take a drink?
No, I sniffed it.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say you better not fucking take a drink.
So I think because I really want to drink these beers, so
I do too.
let's make our predictions on what we think. Which one do we think is going to be better based on our brewing process and justification for that? Then we'll come back and talk about how we're rating the overall process.
Okay. So I'll kick it off, and despite the fact that I think we screwed up the Northern Brewer brewing process, I am predicting that to be the better beer. And I think it's going to be because that malt extract that we put in there is going to save the day. I think that's going to make up for a lot of human error that occurred through both of these processes. And so I think that's going to be, I don't even think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be night and day, that wins. And I think the Brooklyn
Brew Shop.
beer is going to be borderline undrinkable.
Okay, that's a pretty bold prediction. So
It is.
So going into this, because of the boiling snafu, I said there's no way that Northern Brewer is going to come out to be the better beer. And so I nixed that. And the only thing that's making me have second guesses is the fact that I just opened a goddamn rocket. And so it makes me think that maybe my fingers weren't sanitized and I introduced some sort of an agent into the beer that ruined the flavor.
I tried to keep his dirty fucking hands out of the beer, and he kept putting them in there.
But I'm going to stick with my original gut that the more scientific beer process with the Brooklyn Brew Shop and the fact that we didn't have to make up any water on it, it poured perfectly, I think that one's going to surprise us. Despite how foamy and explosive they were, I think it's actually going to be a more well-made beer.
Okay. Good luck.
So
you're gonna be.
So we can start drinking, but I'm going to talk about how we're going to rate these 2 beer processes, because that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to tell the audience if they're going to get into brewing, which one is the kit to go for.
Okay, you do that. I'm gonna taste the beer.
Okay. I lied.
Batch number 1.
I lied. I took a sip.
I know you did.
Because I don't have a pregame beer anymore. So what we're going to do for our criteria, we're not just going to do best tasting beer. We're going to rate it on a couple different criteria with a couple different weightings. So what we're going to do, the first category, I guess we can do category by category. Let's do it that way.
Let's do it like that.
So the first category is which was the easiest and quickest to brew. That counts as a 1-point weighting.
Not even close. Northern Brewer.
I agree with you. That one, it was about an hour less to brew. And like we said, you could probably do it solo. So it was a piece of cake. Second criteria, which process was more fun and more interesting to do to you?
I think the more interesting was the more technical brew. But I do think these 2 questions are contradictory questions.
Okay. Do we need a category for most fun and a category for most interesting?
No.
I think Brooklyn Brew Shop being more complicated. It was more interesting. I felt like we used more tools. We did a thermometer. We used a hydrometer. It appealed to the engineer side of me, so I thought that was a little more fun. And it required 2 people, which that is always more fun. Just kind of like, as we're sitting here drinking this, I haven't got into the Brooklyn Brew Shop yet, but the Northern Brewer, it almost tastes a little flat.
It tastes a little flat, and it's kind of funky.
Yeah,
it tastes nothing like a pale ale.
No.
Yeah, I think it tastes like a watered down Bock.
Yeah, I can see the Bock taste because there's definitely the malt there.
Yeah.
But but it's flat. It's a little flat though. I don't know if it's that we haven't kept it in the bottles long enough to carbonate, but I don't know. It's not spectacular. But I'm not ready to rate it yet. We're gonna get back through the rest of our criteria. The next criteria, which is another 1 point weighting, was total cost. So I'll get this one because I did the purchasing / procurement on this part. If you want to get a gift set from Northern Brewer, so it comes in a pretty cool package that has about everything and more that you need. Looks like this for those looking on the camera. It was about $80, then you throw in shipping. You can get a base kit for $60, but the gift set gives you some pint glasses, it gives you the bottle capper, the bottles. It's the whole kit and caboodle. If you want to get a second batch of Northern Brewer, it's about $18. So we'll talk about it in a minute on output, but you got the base kit, or this kit was $80. The refills are $18. So Brooklyn Brew Shop, again, the base kit is like $50, but it doesn't come with a lot of stuff, so I had to buy a lot more bottles and other things with it. And it ended up being about $80 when everything's said and done. And so the second batch cost is $16. So all that being said, it's kind of a wash on cost. Your initial investment, your cost per beer is pretty high, but the more kits you get, it gets lower and lower cost per beer.
Yep. Okay, so the next competition criteria is number of beers produced. And so again, this one is pretty much a wash. So both of them were supposed to produce 10 beers. And they both produced about 7 or 8 beers. And to be honest, probably 6 normal beers. And as we got near the end, things got a little funky.
The Brooklyn Brew Shop, you got a solid 8 beers out of it, and they all look the same. But I felt like with the Northern Brewer, we were starting to get into the trub a little bit, and so you started seeing a little more floaties towards the bottom, despite our expert level siphoning. I felt like beers 7 and 8, they may be drain pours when we actually get to them, but we'll find out. We still bottle them.
When and if.
Yeah. So
okay, so that's a wash.
We'll call that
so
a wash.
Like going into this, it is a dead ass tie.
Which leads us to the one that actually was weighted higher, but it doesn't matter because it's still a tiebreaker.
Still a tiebreaker.
It's the which beer is better. So far, all I've tasted is the Northern Brewer. So I'm ready to.
That's probably a good thing.
Let me drink a little water to cleanse my palate.
Oh, then let's talk about the smells of these beers.
Okay.
What do you think of the smell of batch number 1, also known as Northern Brewer?
I can't pinpoint that flavor. It is a little funky though.
It is a sweet, malty smell.
It is sweet and malty, but something's a little off with it though.
Yes, there's a lot really off on it.
I really feel bad because I imagine like both of these kits can produce good beers if you know what you're doing, and I don't know if this is a product of us like sucking at brewing the first time or if this is actually the kits aren't that great.
So, what do you get on the smell?
Got a little bit of it's still foaming.
It's still foaming.
I call it a Belgian dip. There be a freaking bone here. All I asked for were sharks with freaking laser beams attached to their heads. All right, done with Dr. Evil.
Thank you.
So this smells like a Pilsner to me.
Yeah, I was
It
like
does.
completely like a Pilsner. When it was spraying all over, I was smelling, I was like, that kind of smells like a Pilsner. And then like as I poured mine, I was like, it does not smell at all like a pale ale.
But I don't get any off flavors on it though. It smells good. It smells like a Pilsner. So we'll find out what it tastes like. The rocket beer. Rocket beer.
It does not look at all like a Pilsner.
It looks, but think about when we drank a pre-war Pilsner by Live Oak, it was an old school style Pilsner, and it was a little cloudier than your crisp.
Not like this.
Not this cloudy.
Not anywhere near. So Drew take the fucking first sip.
It's good. It's good. Drink it.
I wasn't a fan.
You're not a fan of this? I don't. It tastes like a cleaner drinking beer than a Funky McFunkerson, right?
It tastes like a watered down pale ale Pilsner blend.
I don't know, man. Right at this exact second, I'm digging it. Despite the fact that I'm covered head to toe in it. Or I was. It's
See,
on the word page.
I think you have an emotional attachment to it.
Is it kind of like Stockholm Syndrome?
Yeah, like what you two have been through together is just too much for you objectively.
Yeah.
Rate this beer.
You know, originally when I was thinking about this episode, I thought that for a pre-game beer, we should bring in like
a real Pilsner.
a real pale
Yeah.
ale or a pale ale.
Yeah, pale ale.
But I'm kind of glad we didn't, because I think if we did a comparison across the board, I think our Beering and Easy batch number 1 and 2 may come in last. So, gun to your head, are you ready to pick between the two beers? I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna have to go back and take a sip of the Funky Town over here.
So I tell you though, if this one had carbonation, it'd be okay.
So I read something. I read some reviews on this, and somebody was talking about their beer, and they said that they opened it at 2 weeks, and they weren't a big fan, and then they waited another week in the fridge, and they drank it, and it tasted a lot better. So it makes me wonder, the rest of we're down a beer from the one that exploded in the house, but like when we drink these a week from now, will they actually get better?
I think they need to be our pregame beers for our next episode.
I think that's fair. Yeah, but the Northern Brewer it's kind of flat right now. It's a little flat, and the flavors are just a little bit. I feel like there's something that's a little off on the flavor.
Well, I don't know that the flavor is off. I think what's off is the carbonation.
Okay. But I still.
Let me back that up. The flavor is completely off for a pale ale.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is not a pale ale.
Yeah, it's like an amber Bach mixture.
I can't see my hand through it, so it's not very pale in my opinion. Of course, I can't see it through the other one either. I'm making the bold statement. I still think that this Brooklyn Brew Shop is a better beer.
I'll go with that, but I'm not ready to give up on batch number 1 because
you hope that carbonation will come.
Carbonation will come.
And honestly, I don't want to give up on batch number 1, because if we made it again, if we didn't boil off all that other stuff?
Yeah, knowing what we know now.
Yeah.
Except because that doesn't have anything to do with the carbonation.
Yeah.
That's the big curveball.
So does the fact that out of our 8 beer output for Brooklyn Brew Shop, the fact that at least one of them is a freaking rocket, I mean, I feel like there should be some sort of penalty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we can at least drink some of the Northern Brewer ones.
Yeah, it's like.
All right.
You're gonna be gun shy to open. Anytime you drink one of those, you're gonna need to call me over and have me open it for you.
No, I think we need a third party to drink our beers and tell us how they are, and I don't think we should warn them about the Northern Brewer.
But we should have them outside of our house.
Yes, exactly. Their own house.
At their own house, in their own living room.
All right.
Okay, so I'll go with it that Brooklyn Brew Shop has a better taste right now.
What would you rate your top beer today? Are you even gonna give it an Untapped rating? Or are you just gonna plead the fifth?
It would not be proper if I didn't give it a rating. It is not a very high rating.
What is it? I mean,
I gotta have another drink before I do that.
every time. I'm actually gonna go with 3.5 on this American Pale Ale.
Oh my god! How could you go with 3.5?
I don't know, man. I feel like it wasn't that bad of a beer. I would drink another one of these if I had someone open it for me.
I can do that for you. So I'm gonna go with 3.0. I was between a 2.75 and a 3.0.
Okay.
But
it makes me wonder if your batch is different than mine over there. Because usually we're not that far up.
I know. Well, it's like a Pilsner, but it's not a Pilsner. And it has a pale ale aftertaste.
Yeah.
Not a strong pale ale aftertaste. Or not a proper pale ale taste.
So my rating on the Northern Brewer, I don't know, man. I don't know that I can make it through this whole beer. I'm gonna be honest. I think it may be a drain pour by the end of the night.
Yeah.
So I almost don't want to rate it, but at least what it tastes right now looks like a 2.5.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah. So it
is intriguing though.
Yeah, I kind of want to drink another one in a week, but again, it may be our brewing process. Maybe we're not cut out for this business.
Well,
the question that I have is, would you do it again? Would you buy another refill kit for one of these brew kits and do it again?
For $18? I would, under two conditions. Number one, we were drinking beer while we were doing it.
Yep.
More than 2 beers. And number two is we had like a football game or something else to entertain us.
Yeah, we had to like have small talk for this whole time,
And it got weird.
It did get weird. We there was a few awkward moments, and
mainly when Drew was talking.
yeah, every time I was talking, because there wasn't anything to watch on TV. It was just one day it was just complete quiet, just me and Adam in the house, and the second time our kids were like screaming at the top of their lungs the entire time, so it made it a little more entertaining.
And we were drinking beer.
So
we could numb it out.
Yeah, we couldn't hear them anymore. So what would you do, like, we've talked about this whole process, what would you do differently if you bought another one of those refill kits?
Nothing.
Nothing. You wouldn't change a thing.
I would not let your fucking dirty hands contaminate the beer. That is definitely one thing. The other thing is I would not let you overboil the beer.
I think come on, man. Overboiling the beer is definitely something that I would like to correct the next time we do this. I think another thing would be, I wouldn't mind having a larger filter strainer for if we were doing the Brooklyn Brew Shop, because that was kind of intense when we had this big pile of grain on there. So those are the main things that I do differently. And the other thing is, like, I feel like we could optimize some of those steps. Like with the Brooklyn Brew Shop, you siphoned it into a container with honey, and then you had to siphon it again into beer bottles. It's like, why can't I just mix up the honey, put an equal amount in each bottle, and then siphon it once? Like that's optimization.
No, that's not possible.
Oh yeah.
You won't be able.
I don't think my beer would have exploded if we'd done it that way.
I think some of your beers wouldn't. I think the others would have blown your face off because you wouldn't be able to get the same amount of honey in each one.
Oh, ooh, yeah. It'd be like Russian roulette.
Yeah, it's like, open this in front of your face. This is gonna blow your face off.
All right. I think we've done enough on this great. So we came in kind of bold, thinking that we were going to be the brewers of the next generation, and I'm feeling a little less confident after this episode.
So I actually had some thoughts on my walk over, and I was thinking, if I try these beers and these are like badass beers, I'm gonna lose so much appreciation for all these breweries. Like if it's like I can just walk up, not know what the fuck I'm doing, and make a good ass beer, then why go to the breweries? Why live the life that I've chosen? And so I'm actually kind of pleased that our beers sucked.
I can respect that.
You can respect that.
It makes me a lot more thankful for those breweries out there that actually know what they're doing. I did have enough fun where maybe we try it again, but I don't know, man. Season 2. I think we should do one. I think the real test is that Adam and I should buy the same kit.
Brew off.
Yeah, brew off. We make the same beer, each of us, and then see which one tastes better.
Would they turn out the same?
I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm having like flashbacks from that explosion.
It really blew into your face.
It did. The more I'm drinking this thing, it does have more of an aftertaste. Can I go back and change my rating?
It is not a 3.5.
Okay, I'm editing my page. It's a 3.0. Still better than the multi one.
Still better. It's not really better. It's less bad.
I think I was drinking it colder, and if you drink it super cold, it masks
some of
the flavors. Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, you have made it through this entire podcast. Bless your heart. And we have educated you and taught you how to become a brewmaster.
So go get your kit and join us in the fun.
Rest in peace, and we'll see you next time.
Rest in peace. So we had last week a pretty epic brewing failure, and we mentioned that we needed to come back a week later to really soak in on that beer experience and retaste the beers. And on top of that, we brought back a recurring guest, friend of the show, Michael, today to give his, unbiased opinion on our beers and participate in the fun that we got later.
Congratulations, Michael, on being the first multi-appearance guest.
Yeah, thanks guys. I'm glad to be back. I'm disappointed I can't use the word inaugural again this time, but
I was a little slow as I was talking because I was trying to figure out how to bring inaugural into it.
So we're here back in the lab, the office that, believe it or not, does not smell like beer because of an hour of cleaning last week.
It's a little musky.
So the two questions we left ourselves last week was, we had one beer from Northern Brewer that was flat as hell, and we said, let's give it a week and really taste it out. So Adam, you had both rounds of it. What are your thoughts coming back on week 2?
It lines up perfectly with my prediction that it would be the better beer and that after a week it would be better. And it is much better. I mean, it has the same flavor as it had last time, except it has a normal beer carbonation now.
sadly no one actually offered me the beer last week, but today it actually tastes very drinkable.
You missed nothing from missing it last week. I
Sounds
agree.
like I missed the explosion. But
I was thinking that everything in our fridge was going to be drain pours after last week, and I'm like, oh man, I think I want to hold on to these. I think they're pretty tasty. So the frosty footprint for the win, I think.
Cheers.
Cheers. So I think that answered the question though, is it just hadn't carbonated completely in the bottle, and give it another week and the carbonation caught up with it. And the second beer was the Rocket Man Bottle Rocket super hazy pale ale from the Brooklyn Brew Shop. And on this one, we speculated that fermentation was not complete.
Fermentation gone south.
So what's funny is like you're supposed to give it 2 weeks to ferment, and I actually let it sit for a full 18, 19 days because I didn't want to, they say that one of the fails of home brewing is that you bottle it too soon. So I thought I was doing the right thing, but when we had to open 3 bottles tonight. All 3 of them foamed over, and it took 3 bottles just to get tasters for the 3 of us to drink. That's all that was left of this beer.
so we're gonna enjoy this one then.
Yeah, it's
Take a sip, Michael. What do you think?
I think I need some more sips. Is that
Perplexed
yes.
look on Michael's face as he's analyzing what's in front of him.
I like the first one better, but this one's actually, I didn't get to see the giant foaming over of the other ones, but this one's pretty good. It's definitely hazy. It's kind of it almost looks like an IPA color-wise from the haze, but you're saying it's a hazy pale ale?
It's just a pale ale.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're just calling it hazy pale ale for fun.
We hazed it. It knows that's
I think
what we like.
mine's got some sediment at the bottom. So
Mine has quite a bit.
Yeah, I think
Have you smelled that one?
Let's see.
Not what you expected, huh?
No, not so much.
Yeah, I think this one like has the smell. I still thought the smell was good. The taste, it still got some off flavors, which it could be because it wasn't done fermenting. You never know. I have a feeling that if we hadn't, bottled it too soon, then this one probably would have been pretty drinkable. But we've almost rocketed through our whole stash of these bad boys, so I think it's going to be frosty footprint from now on. So I think we can officially say that came out victorious. We flipped our answer from last week.
Just like I predicted.
Yeah.
I think it's actually worse than it was last week. And it may be just because the other one is better. And now, we were drinking 2 funky beers side by side, where now it's a pretty legit beer versus a not legit beer.
I have to comment on the fact that you said that you won just as you predicted. I just have to say that even a blind squirrel finds a nut sometimes.